Good morning, good morning. Happy Sunday, happy Super Bowl Sunday. For those of you who care about that, I don't know if everyone does. I kind of do. Welcome. And welcome to those of you who are new here for the first time. I know when I came here the first time, I was a little hesitant when I came in. And the circle didn't scare me at the end, but I've been to churches who did that before, so it was all right. But I knew very quickly after I came that I'd found a group of friends and I found another spiritual home. So welcome. I hope you have a lovely experience today. I want to start today with a bit of public service announcement. A reverend sent me these church bulletins, and they're sort of examples of what not to do, and I'm thinking of Joseph as he does his announcements. Just listen. The sermon this morning is called Jesus Walks on the Water. The sermon tonight, Searching for Jesus. These are examples of what not to do. Don't let worry kill you off. Let the church help. Miss Charlene Mason sang, "I will not pass this way again," giving obvious pleasure to the congregation. Good. That's nice. You're getting it. That's good. I like that. Some of them are hits, and some of them just a rolling laughter. It's good. Let's see. The Low Self-Esteem Support Group will meet Thursday at 7 p.m. Please use the back door. Yeah, I like that. The associate minister unveiled the church's new tithing campaign slogan last Sunday. "I upped my pledge. Up yours." That one didn't work. I don't think that read exactly how they wanted it to read. Ladies, don't forget the rummage sale. It's a chance to get rid of those things not worth keeping around the house. Bring your husbands. Just a couple more. For those of you who have children and don't know it, we have a nursery downstairs. They say these are real, you know. Please place your donation in the envelope along with the deceased person you want to remember. Yeah, that's so wrong. Which other one shall I read? I'm going to read this one, but no, I won't. Okay. The Fasting and Prayer Conference includes meals. Potluck supper Sunday at 5 p.m. Prayer and medication to follow. And then, let's see. One more. This evening there will be a hymn singing in the park across from the church. Bring a blanket and come prepared to sin. I think they left off a G on that one. So, that's a little humor for the day. I'm not good at telling jokes, but I can read bulletins. So today's talk, this month's theme is love. And I realized as I was, love is my decision. I love that. I forgot that was the song that we sang at the beginning. And that's sort of what my talk's about. So today, especially this is good for the new-timers, I'm going to go back to a text from 1946, a lecture from Ernest Holmes. Ernest Holmes, for those of you who don't know, is the founder of religious science and the sort of our leader in text. We don't have a leader like that, like some religions have. But he's our founder, and he created the book, and the movement has been created from his teachings. So this is from a lecture that he gave, I think it was called This Thing Called You. There's a little book that has the same title. This is one of the lectures that have created that book eventually. This is back to the beginning. Prayer is your direct line of communion with God. Through affirmative prayers, we learn to clear our minds of negative thoughts, of doubt and fear. This we must do if we are to become aware of the presence of God within us and around us. You belong in a universe in which you live. God wanted you and needed you, or you wouldn't be here. The universe wanted you and needed you, or you wouldn't be here. You can trust this something called life. You can trust this something called love. It is not only where you are, it's what you are, and it is who you are. It is in as well as around you, and its whole impulse, he used the words impulsion, very 1950s, its whole impulse is love. It is, the universe is all around you, and its whole impulse is love. The universe rests on the shoulders of love. Love is the lodestone of life. You are God's beloved. Accept it and be glad. Yeah, easy words. But what do we do when we can't accept it and when we're not so glad and we don't really believe that the universe is loving? What do we do then? Our teaching says that our work is to turn our attention from the doubt and fear to the spiritual truth, to the truth that the universe is a loving universe, that God is loving itself as it's manifesting itself as us, as its creative expression. When we doubt that, we have specific technologies, and one of our technologies is affirmative prayer. One of our other tools is we come into communion with another person or another group or a church on Sundays or a meeting or classes. The other tools, we use prayer, we use meditation, we can use chanting or singing like we do today. All religious traditions, all faith traditions, many cultures, most cultures, and many of the self-help gurus or the self-development programs, even like the 12 Steps or Louise Hay, they all have versions of affirmative prayer. They have versions of affirmations, or they have versions of chants or songs or some sort of meditation that brings you to a silent place, to a calm, so that you can let go of the day and the madness that goes on in our head at any given moment and bring it to a center, bring it to an ease. And all of this is designed to bring us back to focus and to bring our focus back to that which we call God, or we can call it love, we can call it light. It's interesting to note that in some religions we use the word sin, and that's been taught to us that it is sort of like a broken law. The actual root of the word and the origins of the word mean just to turn away from God. So to sin just means to turn away from, and in our teaching, turn away from the truth of who you are. When we doubt our being, when we doubt the world, in this context, we're turning away from the spiritual truth of the essence of our origins. The spiritual truth, our divine name and nature, which is love. We were created out of a loving process. The creative process is a loving process. God created of itself, more of itself, and named it for each and every one of us here. Everything and everyone that has been created out of some idea that God has of itself. And God can only create of itself. And we are expressions of that. So we have to be created of the stuff that created the universe, created of the stuff that is God. And that, its nature, is love. Some say that we turn into meditation, or we turn into prayer, like the song today, Lifting the Veil, brings us back into some sort of calm, into some sort of grace. But at that moment, we always have a choice. We can choose, like the song says, love is a choice, love is a decision. We can choose to ease into that knowing, or we can choose to be present with all our friends and still be thinking about what we want to do. We still be thinking about the person who pissed us off on the highway, or whatever the thing. We can be thinking of the madness. We've been caught up in the madness. That is our monkey mind. That is our craziness. Or we can choose to surrender to grace, to surrender to the truth that is beyond the facts, beyond the ideas. And this choosing and this moment is always an opportunity for us to make a choice. To make a choice for a higher ideal, or to make a choice from our most basic human condition. Even in the 12 steps, the 11th step is sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understand Him. Praying only for knowledge of His will for us and for the power to carry it out. Now we can change that if the word God bothers anyone or create some sort of energy around it, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our consciousness, our conscious contact with love, as we understand love. It's the same thing. But we have to make the effort. We have to make the conscious choice to choose love over fear and limitation and doubt. That's our job. And we can choose it or not. It's as simple as that. It's not simple in the application, because we all know the days can get a little less loving sometimes. And when the universe dumps 12 feet of snow on us, and it shuts down Manhattan, the storm of the century, fear, 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 the whole world buys into it. I'm not saying we should deny the realities of what's going on, but we don't have to buy into all the fear that's being pushed in our face and loaded into our consciousness. We can be with all of that and still be in grace and still be in love. My understanding and the tool that has been most important to me and what I've recognized in all my studies is the key ingredient for all of these traditions and for any real progress and any sort of meaningful, sustainable spiritual life is the act of surrender. Surrender to what is, and surrender to what is possible, and to surrender to the beyond, to the idea beyond, or the truth beyond my identity, to the truth beyond facts and ideas. That's why we come into communities like this. I will say, several years ago, I went through a deconstruction period in my life. I left a husband of 16 years, I left a job, a career, I was unemployed, I moved into a teeny little apartment. I could touch both walls. And that same year, my mother transitioned, she died. And we went through a 4-month process of her going through cancer and the various iterations of that. Now, that's a trying year for any of us. And I will say that I did not believe the universe was a loving universe at that moment. And many times throughout that year. I had my spiritual work, I had my spiritual practice, I could meditate, I could do all the things, I had funny jokes to read, I had all the things that had worked for me for years were no longer so effective. And the only thing I could do on most days was to surrender to what is real. I prayed, but the prayers weren't effective for me. I could no longer meditate. For the whole time that I was with my mom and my dad for 4 months, I couldn't meditate, I couldn't do any spiritual practice, I couldn't do anything that I normally had done. I wasn't interested in reading the Tao Te Ching or the Bible or anything that I had read. All I could do was just be still and be real with what was happening. I could surrender to the truth, and I could surrender to something that said, exhale. One of my teachers, she may have done it here, Reverend August Gold, in one of her practices was always to put your hand on your chest and say, I am here now. If you don't do anything else, I am here now. Now in that year, there was a song that I would sing occasionally, and it's become my primary spiritual practice. I sing it in the morning, in the shower, and whenever I feel like it. It's just a short little song. I'm going to sing part of it for you. It came out of a choir experience. So I just invite you to relax your gaze. If you want to close your eyes, that's fine, but just listen. If you can use anything, Lord, you can use me. If you can use anything, Lord, you can use me. Take my hands, Lord, and my feet. Touch my heart, Lord, speak through me. If you can use anything, Lord, you can use If you can use anything, Lord, you can use me. Exhale. So it's okay. I wasn't looking for applause, but thanks. It's nice. That song definitely has sort of Christian tendencies or Christian leanings. It sounds like we're praying to a God outside. If you can use anything, use me. But what's so great about our teaching is that we're not surrendering to God. Because we believe there is one life, there is one God, and that life is being lived through us. We are all one. We are all part of the mind of God and the expression of God. So we're not surrendering to God. We're surrendering to God as us. We're surrendering to the piece of us, the aspect of us that is the highest vision of us. We're surrendering to perhaps God's vision for us, not our own vision of ourselves. We're not surrendering to, please save me, please save me, please save me. We're surrendering and releasing ourselves to the aspect of ourselves that knows beyond our own knowledge. And that takes ongoing spiritual practice. And that's why we come to communities, because we can't do it on our own always. Sometimes we need to touch and hug and see each other and make contact with each other, with music, with strangers, with new people, with friends, with family. And sometimes it is just a private, intimate surrender to the truth. And then surrender to the truth that this one life is living through us. And this life is living through us, not to us. This life is happening for us and as us. Now, the topic of today's talk is the art of loving. This all ties in, I promise. This book, The Art of Loving by Erich Fromm, psychoanalyst, was written in 1956, so I'm going in decades now. And this book, my father gave me a number of years ago, but I grew up with this book sitting on the nightstand by the lazy boy chair. So my father's favorite book. So, if love is an art, is love an art? I'm just going to read you a few passages from it. If love is an art, then it requires knowledge and effort. Most people see the problem of love primarily as that of being loved rather than that of being loving, of one's capacity to love. Hence, the problem to them is how to be loved and how to be lovable. What most people in this culture mean by being lovable essentially is a mixture of being popular and having sex appeal. This is 1956. Things have changed so drastically since then. And then he goes on to explain variations of that, but I'm just going to skip to the end. There is hardly any activity or any enterprise which is started with such tremendous hopes and expectations and yet which fails so regularly as love. It is optimistic in its way. If this were the case with any other activity, people would be eager to know the reasons for the failure and to learn how one could do better, or they would give up the activity. Since the latter is impossible in the case of love, there seems to be only one adequate way to overcome this failure of love, and that is to examine the reasons for the failure and to proceed to study the meaning of love. The first step to take is to become aware that love is an art and that living is an art. The process of learning an art, any art, can be divided conveniently into two parts. One, the mastery of theory, the other, the mastery of practice. Aside from learning the theory and the practice, there is a third factor necessary to becoming a master of any art. The mastery of the art must be a matter of ultimate concern. There must be nothing else in the world more important than the art. This holds true for music, this holds true for meditation, this holds true for carpentry, and this holds true for love. And yet, we think love is just supposed to happen. We get the inspiration, and then we don't want to do the work. We get the inspiration, oh my God, it's romantic, it's all of that. I'm not talking about the romantic love. We even have that in sort of religious practice or even sobriety practice, where there's the high at the beginning, and I don't mean that in the wrong way, but the excitement of making a connection with the one. But the sustainable life experience is not sustained in the high of that ecstatic experience. It's sustained in the day-to-day, moment-to-moment, turning our mind back to God. That's what the 100 Joy List was about. Whenever you can, turn your mind back to something that is joyful, to something that is uplifting, even if your mother's dying in the bed beside you. There is something that is present there that is love. In the witness of that, there is something that is present. Even in a divorce and all the various things that we all have gone through or will go through at some point, there is an essence that has nothing to do with anyone's approval. And there is an essence that, what Ernest Holmes said at the very beginning, when I first started, that you were born of love, and God wanted you and needed you here. That is the baseline for our whole religion, our whole faith, our whole philosophy. So much of what we've been taught about love has been sort of false and misguided. It's been how to get love, how to be more attractive to someone to get love, how to be more successful, how to get a job, how to have other people approve of us. The goal for me in all my spiritual practice is to get more clear about my oneness with God and to get more clear with what I really mean when I say love for myself. And when we do that, it's when we get clear, we end up living from the inside out. We live from love from the inside, feeling love on the inside, to love being expressed in the external. The other way around, most of our society is built, let me put on a new sweater, let me put on something, let me get a new car, let me get a new job. That is all supposed to bring more joy, more happiness, more love to the inside. It's the wrong way around. That's an acquisition. Love is an experience, not an acquisition. The goal is to feel love, to feel the oneness, to feel the grace, so that everything that is expressed from our being in our life, whether it's an interaction or a job or how we move about in our day-to-day moments, everything becomes an expression of the qualities of being that we experience. This is what I meant a couple months ago when I read the poem, Let God Think of You, Think Through You, and then Think Again. So that the inside, what the feeling tone that you create for yourselves, which is so much a part of our teaching, creating a passionate feeling tone, that creates the thoughts that create the manifestation in our lives. Let love think you, and then think again. Let your thoughts be changed by your inner grace. Think of yourself as love would think of you. The artist Marc Chagall said, in our life there is a single color as on an artist's palette which provides the meaning of life and art, and it is the color of love. There is a single color that informs our whole life, and that is the color of love. Mother Teresa says, the success of love is in the loving, not as the result of loving. The success of love is in the loving. It's in the action of loving. We've all heard love is a verb. Well, it's also love as an experience, not in a romantic sense, but in a graceful sense, in an easeful sense, so that every action in our life becomes loving. So that our living becomes a loving expression of what we know to be true for ourselves. Now, I'm going to revisit this idea of this book in sort of coming talks. It's going to be my theme for this year for myself as well. It's a starting place for all sort of quests for love or for experience of love has to be with our own personal, intimate experience of love. What is our relationship to the Word? What is our relationship to ourselves and our relationship to that which we call God? Now, like I said at the beginning, we can't all experience that at every moment. Life can be challenging. I don't want to necessarily experience love when I'm having a conflict with a coworker. I want to be right. I know we're supposed to be happy, but sometimes we want to be right. But in those moments and in the challenging moments of life, the one thing that I can do and the one thing I would invite you to do is just surrender. Surrender to something beyond. And is it possible just to surrender to the idea, just the idea, you don't even have to believe it yet, but surrender to the possibility and to the idea that you were born of love. That we weren't born out of sin. We weren't born a sinner. We weren't always going to be a sinner. That's one theology, and that's just a theology. Well, how about our theology gets reworked for ourselves personally, that we were born a blessing. We were born from a blessing into a blessing, regardless of the life circumstances we were born into. The innate aspect of the creative process is a loving aspect. How about we just hold that as an idea of a possibility for ourselves? We don't have to believe it all right now. The universe, hold the idea that the universe is a loving place, and that you are loved, and that the essence of who you are and your life itself is love. Can we surrender to the idea, to the possibility that there is no reason needed for loving? You are loved simply because you are loved. Period. We are loved simply because we are alive. And our life, our living, is an expression of that love. And the first step, that's the first step. You don't even have to believe it. Just be open to the possibility. That love, like I said at the beginning, is your most true divine name and nature, regardless of the name that you call yourself. The name beyond that, the whisper that was whispered into your soul before you even got here, was that you are loved. Period. And so it is. Thank you. Thank you. Now, I'm going to just offer up